So today I wanted to look into the phenomenon of screen yellowing. And I need to grab a touch screen for this console. The plan is to my right I have a bag of broken displays, as well as a small box of yellow displays, and from what I've been able to gather, since I have a very large test batch, the yellowing itself isn't due to the liquid crystal layer, but more impacting the LED diffusing layers in the back of the, like, what actually illuminates the LCD. If the report I heard from one user is correct, then that would be all that's needed to repair a yellowed screen. Of course, I don't expect LED diffusion layers to be that easy to get to or find replacements of. But I'm going to try this because I do have displays that are, as far as I'm concerned, junk. So this one has observed flickering. This is another phenomenon I'm looking into that I haven't quite nailed down. This one's unmarked, but I know I got a lot of Japanese consoles that were in physically very good shape, but aggressively yellowed. The bottom display I have, I don't remember exactly what was wrong with it. I think it was blotchy. And I think that's sort of a similar phenomenon where water or something got into the diffusion layers and just left residue. Let's see what this looks like. Nope. Did I forget to plug in the Wi-Fi card? Nah. So that happens when the Wi-Fi card sort of bumps out of its socket. Ooh, so this one's vignetting. That's another different phenomena that I can look into. That might just be a failing of the backlight, which could be irreplaceable with how these screens are sandwiched together. That's a bottom screen. So this one I don't have marked. It's a white bordered, so it's from a Japanese console. I really don't like plugging in top screens that often because of how I have to sort of push them in. This one's also vignetting. Vignetting might not be anything I can do anything about. Because unlike yellowing, that has a far more clear explanation. At least the theories are far more sound than what I've heard from yellowing. But I have kept these consoles just in case, or these screens just in case there are some type of miracle cure. Ooh, so this one's yellowing pretty good. Definitely around the edges. I don't know if that's really going to come up. Nah, of course not, but that is pretty rough yellowing. I'm going to find one that's really bad. I know I have a couple in there that are just really bad. This one's not that bad either, but of a yellowing degree, I wouldn't try and sell. I know I have some consoles set aside to run through a de-yellowing experiment. Yellow, but still just kind of on the edges. I really want to look for something that's really bad, because I think that's just going to show up on camera better. Right now it's just all purely subjective accounts, which aren't very handy to try and convey. Similar degree. There is nothing wrong with this touchscreen. I'm gonna put this in a good pile. Not sure why it was in there. This one's really mildly yellow. Like, this is yellow to the degree that I would almost try and put in a console to sell. It's not bad. It's a little bit, but... to say that the yellowing can get really bad is a bit of an understatement. Yeah, yellow. And then I have to have one that's really, really bad. There's another screen that's like... good. I'll take it. Ooh, that one's pretty rough. But it's amazing what my camera will filter out, because it looks pretty yellowed on in person, just around the edges. But it comes up as clear on the camera. This one has very mild yellowing on the edges. I don't know if that's the beginning of vignetting. A little hard to say. This one actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna have to look at it a little closer, I think. Well, I'm almost disappointed I haven't found one yet. Ooh, that one's pretty bad. Yeah, and that one's coming up. I think I found my candidate. So let me grab just... just leave notes on these screens that I think they're good. They're going to require a lot more testing. So now that I've found one that is very, very aggressively yellowed to the point of where it's showing up, let me now find a top screen. Oh, this is a DSi. Those are all DSis. I have this one that I'm just considering busted. I don't know if it's just a bad ribbon cable. See if I can get it to boot. It is incredibly rusted, so I would never use this one. I just have it labeled as busted, so I'm guessing it doesn't boot. I can see kind of damage, well, stress on the ribbon cable, so... Oh. Okay, so this one's going to be a pretty good candidate. The colors of the screen are pretty good. I think I see some blotchy. It's a little hard to tell, but what I want to do is, since this is a busted screen, I want to take it apart. Now, this is the part I'm not very good at, per se. I've done this a couple of times, but almost every time it was destructive. The screen didn't survive just being ripped apart. I need a flathead, probably, and just pry it apart. It's going to be from the back. It's just going to be a slowly running across to the back with a couple flatheads and just sort of popping these little tabs. If there's too much damage inside of here, I'll just toss the screen. Well, I'll put it back into my... we'll see. Okay, it's free. Because I have opened these consoles before, or these screens before, just for pure academic curiosity. So this front piece comes off. So this is just sort of the plate which the lens sits on. So then we have the raw LCD. The actual ribbon that connects to the LCD. Might be a insulating layer. Ugh, I'm gonna have to toss this paper towel. I'm glad I put it down. So what I should be able to do is now there's these little white tabs. Is I should be able to just pry. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use any of these layers. This, I think this is the actual backlight, this silver piece? No. That's a reflective layer. This is the actual backlight, this piece right here. It's almost like plexiglass. And then there's these then there's this diffusion, these diffusion layers. I think this is like a polarizer of some sort. They're all water damaged. So I think I'm going to look for another one. But that's kind of the internal layer, and then right here is the actual liquid crystal display. My problem is once I get them kind of apart like this, I can never get them back together. So I guess just for the sake of practice, I'm going to try and sandwich this back together. So they all sit in little grooves. Alright, well I guess that went back together. Pretty alright. I'll look for one that's not. So ideally I need to look for one that has a torn ribbon cable. I have a few of those like that. Where just between negligence or that's just how I got the console. Alright, that actually went together pretty easily. I'm gonna cycle out this paper towel. Wipe off my flatheads. Alright. This one I have labeled as busted. Doesn't look like it's water damaged. I'm usually pretty good at specifying if a ribbon cable is torn. So what busted means is probably the similar to that other screen where it has just aggressive lines on it. Oh yeah, look at that. So that LCD is just completely shot. This might be a really good candidate. Alright, let's get it back apart. The problem will be is I don't know exactly which layer is foul. Looks like it can be pretty aggressive. Trying not to be because I don't know how much abuse this can take without accidentally snapping the LCD. What I should have done, and I guess what I can do here in a second, is get that other screen that I just opened up and boot it back up and see if it survived being opened. Okay, I think we're good. There's like a piece of like conductive. Oh, yeah, that's just a piece of conductive tape. Yeah, if you look at the LCD, you can see exactly where it's cracked and leaked. At least from how I understand what happened here. Can't use that lens because it has marks on it. So before I get too far, that LCD is shot, so I don't really care about it, just an exposed. Let me boot this pink screen back up. Did it survive? Well, it's no better. I don't know if it's any worse. It might be a little worse. Alright. So what I might do is pop this apart and then just leave it. Just so that it's to a degree where it is open, but not like entirely flowing in the wind, because I'll try and keep dust off of it. I'll probably put on a set of gloves. If I thought getting fingerprints on the raw LCD was bad, I don't want to think about what it's like getting a fingerprint on the diffusion layers. But it'd be no loss to me if I can't repair this console. This is more for just academic curiosity, to see if the one user was correct that it is these layers. Let me give myself a little more space. Now I'm going to open this guy up. Oh, I did not want to grab screws. I should probably stop putting stuff over there. I have an ongoing PlayStation 4 project. Try and be a little more careful on this screen, because this is the screen I want to try and save. outer frame should be free now. Okay. Set that right there. There's already a lot of dust and debris on this screen. I think it's a little spotted too. Not sure why that is. It's probably always like that. I didn't really look at these yellowed screens too closely. I just immediately reject them. I do see a line right here. I may have cracked this LCD. So I'll probably have to be a lot more careful. Yep, that's unfortunate. So I need to be a lot more careful prying these things apart. So now it's going to go down to... I'm wondering... I'll have to see if I can salvage this lens. It might still be good. And let me get these speakers off. So, since I no longer care about this screen. I'll see if I can find another yellowed screen to be a little more careful on. I'm probably going to have to use plastic pry tools, I suppose. But now I can actually look at what color the diffusion layer was. Okay, come on. So I can kind of do a... I almost want to keep that still kind of sealed. Here's the reflective layer. I don't see anything wrong with it. We have the backlight. Which I don't see any problem with either. Polarizer. What I'm going to try and do is sort of piece this screen together one at a time. Because I can't really tell exactly what's causing the problem. So what I want to do is try and plug it in. And then I'm just going to sort of set a diffusion layer, or just sort of layer in the LCD one at a time to see exactly what turns yellow. I don't know if this will even work. So what's interesting is these lights are actually yellow. Polarizer. Right there. I can already see it. This is kind of cool. So, it might be this layer. It is very hard to tell. But once I put this like polarizer on is when I can see it actually. You can actually see it in the camera. You can see these corners, it turned yellow. If I'm looking at the camera, I can still see it's yellowed. What if I flip it upside down? Does that move the yellowed corners? No, it doesn't. So that kind of implies the backlight, really. You know what, since we're doing this for academic curiosity, I'm just going to pull this one apart and just start trading pieces. So here's the reflective layer that sits behind the digitizer, or the backlight. The backlight I physically can't swap over, not really easily. So what I'm going to do is swap the reflective piece. I think it's sat like this. I don't think the orientation really matters that much. Okay. Turn it on. Can't exactly tell. So we have like this layer, then the polarizer, which once I put on the polarizer, I still see it. I see it again. So it does not seem to be the reflective layer behind the backlight. I'm wondering why the lights are actually yellow. I'm curious to see if what the color of this backlight has. That might just be yellow is the color of it, and that doesn't necessarily explain yellowed screens, because what that yellow would be far more uniform. This screen boots, right? Yeah, the cracked LCD. I don't have the reflective layer in the back. I might have to grab that. I just want to know what color the LEDs are. Oh, well. My question's already answered. I was just wondering why it was flashing. It's because I don't have this top screen plugged in all the way. So that's interesting. So these lights are yellow. So what exactly, why those lights are yellow, I'm not entirely sure. Like, that's really kind of crazy to me. That explains why that yellow manifests, why it's specifically yellow and it's not any other color. But it doesn't exactly explain, like, why. What, like, is it like a deterioration of these layers that are letting that yellow light go through more easily? Because it's clear that once all these layers go on, that yellow disappears. You don't see that yellow aside from when you need to see the color yellow, I suppose. And that's dictated by the actual LCD. Alright, so let's get this plugged in. And just start swapping layers. I need to make sure I have all the layers in order. They're not really exactly numbered. Okay. So I have the reflective layer on. So now I'm going to swap over this. I don't really know what these layers are called. I am just guessing. It's kind of curious if I hold it over. I don't think that matters, but that's the first layer. So if I hold this over, well, that doesn't really matter. So I can still see it. Polarizer. And then there's... Or maybe this is more of a polarizer. Yeah, it's still very prominent. So that implies it's the backlight that's actually bad. Not any of these layers. Let's do the next layer, I suppose. The next layer is sort of this reflective film. I probably had this all on wrong order. It's interesting. Hello? Did I take all the layers out on accident? I think so. Oh. So we have... I'm getting my wires crossed a little. But I'm very much under the impression it is the backlight. It's none of these layers specifically. So there should be... I was not keeping very good track of all these layers that I was taking out. But even just looking at the backlight, like if I get it at a certain angle, I can definitely see that it's still yellowing on the corners. That might just be kind of a trick of the light. I need to probably pull apart another screen just to see how this works. Rust. I don't want to deal with that again. Okay, I have this one just labeled as busted. Yep, that it is. So now I need to kind of get an accurate count of the layers. Alright. So let me look just... We have the reflective layer behind the backlight. The backlight itself. We have one diffusion layer, which is kind of like a translucent sort of privacy shield looking thing. We have this, which almost looks like a polarizer. We have this another polarizer looking thing. A little different in how it looks. And then there's another small layer. I am curious to know if I can transfer the backlight. I am getting a little sidetracked here, but I am all the more curious. I can melt those solder connections. Okay. So definitely swapping out the backlight is something I want to try. But for now, let me just try and get all my ducks in a row. So we have the reflective layer behind the backlight itself. For some reason I'm not able to get up any of these other layers. Like I'm pretty sure I set them back in there. The screen's busted anyway, so I can... Huh. So then we have this sort of translucent layer. One of the polarizers. Goes reflective layer. Backlight, which I was able to desolder pretty easily. And the light diffusion layers, we have the polarizer. Sort of the more... Yeah, I think that was it. Okay, I think I put them all back together. I probably mixed up these two, but... Let me get power back to the yellowed one. Just with all the layers in place. Still very much yellow. You can see it on the corners. Just going layer by layer. I still see it. So I'm going to take this sandwich of layers, put it right here, and grab this one. All the layers but the reflective layer behind the backlight. Yep, I still see it. So now just to verify that, let me grab all of the layers from this board. I don't know that it's not a yellowed screen, but a lot of my busted screens came from American consoles, which I don't think are almost never yellowed. So these should be perfect layers. And you can still see it. It's yellowed. So now what I'm going to do is swap the backlight. See how well that works out. And see if... I'm going to keep these layers in order. I'm just going to alternate that like that. This doesn't have any layers on it. Let me unplug it. I don't know exactly how well this surgery is going to go. I'm going to try it, but... Let me grab my Omnivice. Because I have to kind of like put my pry tool under it and sort of pop it off. Pry tool and just a pair of tweezers. Yeah, just kind of like that. So now let's get the backlight out. So this is the one I'm suspecting of being yellowed. I'm going to hold it up. The thing is I can't really tell. Like, if you were to tell me that that was a yellowed display, I don't know if I would exactly believe you. Because it looks perfectly fine to me, but... how we sort of get these two ports to marry up. I'm going to kind of pinch them off screen here and then just hit them with my solder iron, just see if they suck up together. Ow. A little hard to tell if I got it. Soldering these two ribbon cables together. Can't say I've ever done before. I don't know. A little hard to actually kind of clamp together and solder at the same time. I already tried roasting off my thumb. But I'm going to try that. Doesn't work, then, well, I'll just keep looking at it. So this is the yellowed screen. I installed a new backlight in it. Turn it on. Okay. Looks like the operation was a success. I'm going to put in the sandwich of layers that were from the yellowed screen. Well, not exactly from the yellowed screen. And look at that. It's perfect. The only thing that was different was the backlight. Obviously, if the LCD wasn't shot, I'd be able to tell that. But you can see it in the camera. I don't see it in person. So let me grab the layers from the screen I know was white. And then what I think I might try and do is find an actual yellowed screen that still has a good LCD. Ooh, yeah, that looks great. So now I'm going to look for a yellowed screen that has a good LCD. So I'm going to keep this aside. Kind of getting jumbled up here. I'll try and take it off in a way that's not destructive. So here's one I just have labeled as bad LCD. I can already tell it is a bad LCD. The entire center portion of this screen is bad. Oh, and I may have just in sort of the... It also flashes. It's possible there's a tear. Oh, what am I doing? I'm looking for a yellowed screen. I still have several screens that I haven't labeled. Ooh, yeah, this is a good one. Okay. So this is yellowed corners. Leading theory is the backlight. So now I'm gonna actually use plastic pry tools to take this apart. I'm gonna grab some new ones actually, some new sharp ones. Where's my bag of them? I'll grab a couple. I should almost take these speakers off just so that they're out of my way. Come on. Okay, so now let's try and pop this apart without cracking the LCD. That might be a little easier said than done. But I'll try and be careful. Just gonna be kind of working my way around. Okay, I think I got it. Look at the LCD just to make sure it's not. Looks like it survived. Put that right there. That's probably a good lens, so I need to be careful with it. So what I want to do is I put all of the good layers in here. Further take this apart. And not drop it. Okay, so now the LCD is free. Forward. I need to make sure that these are put in sort of the same orientation. We have the reflective layer. It's all kind of stuck on the top. Let me just swap everything, with the exception of the backlight. Just to prove it once and for all that it is the backlight. Here's the backlight. Got the first layer. Second layer. Third layer. Fourth layer. So I've swapped all of the internal layers of this LCD. I'll just try and get it all lined up. I'm already looking at this. There is no way I could ever do this repair in the setting that I'm in. Like, this would have to be done in like the equivalent of like a clean room. There's just too much dust just falling down on this screen that it's going to be very visible. Drop all these layers in. Backlight. Looks like it's sandwiched together pretty good. That corner isn't wanting to go together. If I would stop dropping it, that would probably help. If it wasn't too obvious, I've already kind of surrendered to the fact that even if I did fix it, I don't think I could ever get all the dust out from those layers. And it would just never work. Or it would never meet my standards. This is more just to prove a theory. Interesting that that pink one went together so easily. What's interesting is some of these layers kind of like bow out. It's not perfectly together, but it should be enough to test. So I swapped all of the layers from a white screen over to this yellowed console. And the screen is still yellowed. This is the second time I've been able to sort of verify. The first time was more of a little dodgy. As far as like data is concerned, because I got things mixed up. But the second time does prove that none of those diffusion layers had any like really noticeable impact. So now my only other option is to replace the backlight, which would be undoing my solder job here. Easy enough. Okay. If I can do this kind of quickly here. And then I'll solder it together when I get yeah, just like all this dust on the reflective surface. There's just no way I could ever get all that off. I'm just looking at that. I'm like, man, I have a hard enough time getting dust off of the LCD. You think I can do that on, what was this, 5 or 6 transparent or translucent layers that govern the usability of the backlight? Like, you're kidding. Kinda sucks, because that means I have a load of screens I can't do anything with. Like, unless I'm really quick at, like, desoldering the backlight, popping it open a little, swap swap. Because then that would at least keep dust away from all the diffusion layers, and then all I'd have to deal with is the reflective surface of the backlight. This, like, rear backlight. Okay, that's sandwiched together. Now I'll try and get this backlight connector soldered back on. I'll just use the Omnivice. I'm not really too particular about this screen anymore. You're a noble sacrifice to science. So what I'm doing, I don't really have a good angle on it, but I'm pinching it together with my pliers, or with my tweezers, and then just holding my iron to it, and in theory should melt them together. I should be using flux, I should be using more solder, but so now the only thing that is similar with this screen is the actual LCD display itself. The actual, like, the LCD. And voila. And you know what? That's actually pretty good. And there's a spot underneath it, but what it is it's not yellowed. You can tell from my camera footage that is a perfectly white screen. It does have this black speck underneath the actual diffusion layers. I bet if I spent a little more time, I might be able to try and get that out. So that it's an interesting discovery that... So it's this. It's the actual backlight that goes afoul. How? I don't know. Can it be cleaned? I don't know. It almost seems like something I would need to, like, bleach. What exactly causes the yellowing? There's just a lot of questions I can't really answer. Something about maybe the backlight, like the way it's diffusing light across the layer, maybe it's failing at some point, so that yellow light is far more prominent than it should be. Because the backlight being actually projecting yellow light doesn't seem to be the problem. Also, having dust on this, yeah, I see the black spot right there. And you know what? If it is just the LCD, or like the actual backlight, that may be a lot more feasible than I'm giving it credit for. Like, depending on how clean I can get this, I might even be able to use this screen. I'm gonna try my hardest. Now this is more of like a practical demonstration of whether or not I actually can. So I'm wondering if what might be easier is to desolder the backlight so that when you open this up, it's not tugging on it on the corner. So when you go to re-sandwich this back together, you can really like get it centered so that the LCD will want to sandwich back together. And I don't have to deal with like this, where it'll be like getting caught up on certain sides. What I might do is desolder it again. These joints are in desperate need of flex. Sorry. So now the backlight is desoldered. So what it should allow me to do is open it up and allow me to close it with a little more grace, because there's little pegs on the bottom where the backlight will actually sit into. And if I can get it to sit in that peg and sort of like get it nice and lined up. I wonder if I can use a different reflective layer that's not like caked in dust. There we go. Now I just gotta kind of like exercise the LCD ribbon to go on straight. Okay. It's not really snapping together like I would kind of expect it to. I think probably because I warped the metal a little more than I should have. So I need to get the backlight back connected. I want to see if I can get this LCD a little clean before I snap on the lens. And I can do this later. It's not really that big of a deal. Grab a chem wipe. Try and get off my fingerprints and other smudges. The dust is another problem, but okay, that looks pretty good, smudge-wise at least. Just grab a piece of Scotch tape and blot off as much of this dust as I can. I see a smudge right there. All the chem wipe does is it adds a lot more dust, but it allows me to get those smudges off. Without trying to use a cotton swab and rubbing alcohol. So frankly, once you kind of refine a technique, it might be more feasible than I would have given it credit for. Tape is extra sticky. afraid to say I lost it. I lost the frame to the blue console, so what I can do is just put the white one on. I need to kind of give this one a similar treatment. I don't know what happened to the frame. This is kind of a... I can deal with this later. This is not like the most critical. Oh, it fell on the ground. Okay. I'm just going to put it on. The white one still might be good, so I'll put that aside. Okay, I might have to kind of help it on. Just so I don't accidentally snap the LCD again. Okay, that looked like it clipped on pretty good. I need to get this tape off my fingers. It's really sticky. Scotch tape's good stuff. I'll probably just take off my gloves. So I still have to put on the backlight. Now I'm a lot... Oh, I can be a little more... I'm okay putting this in the Omnivice. Just clamp really gently. I'll try and just get a little small dab of flux on this. Maybe like even the residue on the tip of my syringe will do. Just a little bit. I don't want to line it up kind of like how it was from the factory. That might be... Oh, interesting. There's like holes. I wonder if I can like exploit those holes. Hmm. I don't know how important it is to line those up. So kind of what I mean is it's a little off center, but it is attached. So now the moment of truth. Firstly, I want to see if I like... if I did a good enough job underneath the lens. That I don't have to take it back off and try and get dust out from underneath it. There's some good smudges on it, but... Nah, there's some pretty good hair, I think. But I'm less worried about that. Like I'll kind of show it. There's these big pieces of hair. There's one in the top corner, but I can deal with that later. That's a lot easier for me to deal with than all this. So let me turn this off. Let me grab my test console. See if it survived the transplant. And I don't remember which backlight was which, so I'm just going to throw all these away. I just want to know as just a proof of concept. Yeah, there's still a speck of dust underneath in the layers. But what it isn't, the yellow. So replacing the backlight did it. Which is very interesting. I want to kind of look at this diffusion layer, or this backlight a little more. See if, like, shining a light through it will sort of pray tell its fate. To be honest, I can't tell. Like, as much as I'd like to say, there's the problem, I can't exactly tell. So I wonder why. Why is this yellowed? Is it the LEDs that are casting the light? There's a little capacitor right there. Is that going bad? Maybe it can't cast light as far? I don't know how much I can test this capacitor. I can try taking it out of circuit. Still not very familiar with measuring capacitors. I have the capacitance option on my multimeter, but it's still all a little foreign to me. I think the easiest way is to actually swap this capacitor. Oh, well, I didn't want to do that. So if I swap this capacitor with a capacitor from this backlight, let me desolder. I think this was one of my just busted ones. Yeah. So this is presumably a white backlight. So there's another capacitor right at the very end. Man, those little fellers are small. What? I'm trying to think of what's the best way to do this. I'm thinking if I want to try and measure the capacitors, I should probably attach wire to them. So I have some 30 gauge above that I had on my Raspberry Pi. If I can just tag little wires on the end of them, it's going to be very hard. Then I should be able to grab better readings on them than trying just to probe them from afar. Let me go down in temp so I don't fray back the shielding. Okay, that's one side. The second I heat it up, it's going to probably just plop off. I may have gotten it actually. So if I have to look up how to take capacitance, I will. Just going to be very careful with this. Just going to clamp it right there. Try and limit as much movement as I can. First, let me check for continuity. Just to make sure I didn't accidentally solder together. It's really small. Okay, I got nothing. So let's do capacitance. This is the measure I'm not entirely sure of. It's going to be a lot easier to take it on a wire than it will be. I jumped all the way up to 5.5 nanofarad. Let me grab my meter and actually show it. So I have it on capacitance. I'm pretty sure that's what that symbol means. Again, this is all kind of new to this. So polarity doesn't matter because it's a capacitor. So I just have my black lead on one wire, red on the other. And it jumps all the way up to 5.5 nanofarad. So just so I can keep track of these, because I'm not exactly good at keeping track of things apparently, that is for the yellowed screen, yellow wire. So let me grab this other capacitor right there. I guess I can do blue. Why not? Blue for clear. I might have to strip this end a little more. And then kind of the same procedure. Where did my solder wire go to? Here it is. Basically tack onto it just like this little tiny grain of rice. It's kind of a miracle I was able to put the first one on. If I put the wire between the solder iron and the capacitor, it shouldn't stick to my iron. Let me tell you, that is much easier said than done. Okay, so I think I got the first end on. Okay. I think I may have gotten it. Like, and when I say tiny, just like where that point is converging is that little tiny capacitor. It almost kind of looks like a blob of solder, but... So now let me put it in my little clamp. Same procedure, let me check for continuity just in case it's not bridging. I'll bring my meter in a second. Nothing. So now let's go back to capacitance. This might even just be inconclusive, but this would explain a lot. Because I don't see anything physically wrong with the screen. I don't want to touch it. I can just move the arm down. Okay. Putting both leads on the end of the wire. I need to strip this one back a little more. Perfect. I know it took a second to get the reading on the other one. Come on. Let me clean my leads off. What's interesting is my meter just kind of freezes. Wonder why that is. Switch off of it and go back. I don't know if they make capacitors that are 0.04 nanofarad. But I wouldn't know. That just seems extremely low. Might be possible one of my connections is not that good. Oop. Let me test resistance. That would be sort of a key indicator that I'm still connected. .3 ohms. So I am connected, obviously. It would have an inconclusive. Let me swap my leads. I don't. Well, capacitors do have polarity. I guess I should know that. At least, like, electrolytic capacitors do. But yeah, my meter just kind of freezes up when I'm trying to get the capacitance on this one. Very strange. Unless it's just 0.5 nanofarad or 0.05 nanofarad. That is incredibly low. So even just like doing nothing, not even having my leads on anything, it's 0.05. Put it on. Nothing. Do I get con? No, because I did have... That's curious. I'm now getting continuity through it. Let me go back to my yellowed ones. My yellowed capacitors. I might need to just redo the solder. It's possible that I may have bridged it. But let me check for resistance on this, on the yellowed screen. Zero? Huh. Still attached. Let me keep looking. Let me grab my... Maybe right there? May have been a bridge. Okay. So let's try that again. So I have it back on continuity. Okay, it must have been a bridge. That explains my capacitance reading. Weird, it didn't chirp the first time when I tried doing that. There it is, 0.576. 0.575. That's the capacitance rating for the one. Now, does 0.2 nanofarad make that big of a difference? I'm gonna see if there's anything online about that. Huh, okay, so AI is kind of giving me a So instead of trying to monkey together what exactly the difference between 0.2 nanofarad, let's actually do a practical demonstration. So this is the yellowed capacitor. This is the clear capacitor. I'm going to kind of put everything aside here. This is the yellowed backlight. So if I put the clear capacitor on the yellow backlight, if that makes it clear, then now the fun part, trying to get this back on. I need to do a little more prep here instead of just trying to wing it. First, get me in the Omnivice, and then I need to use just a little bit of flux. Just a tiny bit. Maybe the amount that's sticking right here on the end of my plunger. It's a little too much, but I'll take it. Actually, having this on a solid surface is probably going to help me more than an Omnivice. What I did see is that this was starting to peel back. I think it's just like glued on. Yeah, look at that. Okay. I'm not going to go as far as to take it off quite yet, but this will help me a lot in trying to put this back on. Keep flinging my solder somewhere. There it is. Okay. That was so much easier than trying to push it against the backlight. Before I do that, let me wipe it off. Okay. Backlight has the yellowed backlight has the good capacitor on it. So now I need to take apart another screen. Let me see if I can find one. Rust. That might be all that's wrong with it. If it's just rust, then I can work with that. Let me make a note on this, the one I replaced. Replaced backlight fixed yellowing is what I'll call it. Oh, far's more is wrong with it than just rust. Doesn't turn on. I'm going to try and find a busted screen that has enough of the LCD intact that I can utilize. Yeah, not that one. Here's a couple busted ones that I have stuck together. I don't know which one's better. This one's rusty. Oh, wow, this one is just gross. I wouldn't say it was yellow, I would just say water damaged. That one's unusable. Torn cables I can't do anything with. Busted. Torn. This one looks pretty bad. Yeah. Here's a busted. I can kind of see a big scar down the side. This one already kind of has yellowing to it. I might just have to sacrifice one of my yellowed screens. Which I'm trying to not do that. Unusable. Because I don't mind if I sacrifice one of these. This one's also kind of yellowed. Torn. Now here's an interesting one. Okay, but blotchy. I need to see what I mean by that. Ooh. I see what I mean. But this will be a good candidate because it's a white screen. It does have some like weird lines, and down here I don't really know what's going on. But this will be my candidate. From the outside, it looks clear. Oh. Cool. I already had this one apart. Wonder if I put in all the layers right. Oh, interesting. It's like water damaged, I think. So I'm gonna keep all the layers as they are. Looks like I did take this out because all these layers are cattywampus. Trying to remember which layer goes what. That one, that one, that one. I thought there was another layer. Actually, I have all my layers over here. There's the one I want to try. The backlight. There's the translucent layer. Polarizing. Polarizing. Translucent. So I'm technically missing a layer. I can just borrow one. That's the backlight I took a capacitor off of. I could try and see what happens if I start the screen up without capacitor. For science. So we have translucent. Yeah, these are all the layers. I think it's exactly like that. So then let me get this backlight off and replace my... I'm going to do the one without the capacitor just for science. Okay. So this is the clear screen I harvested the capacitor off of. Let's put the layers back in. This will at least clean up the blotchiness. For whatever that matters. Touching it with my bare hands, so not quite an ideal. There is no capacitor occupying that space. Did I put this in? Whoop. Yeah, I put this in correctly. Just gotta kind of do that. Okay, that goes together a lot better that way. Sort of having the backlight desoldered really, I think, helps a lot. Let's get this soldered back together. When I put Kapton tape over this, I put it over the solder point. Okay. So what is currently in here is the backlight that does not have a capacitor on it. The 5.5 nanofarad capacitor. What does it do? Does it get worse? Does it yellow worse? Does it yellow at all? Does the thing even turn on? Probably not. I'm guessing if a capacitor... There is no noticeable difference? um, I didn't install the right one, right? Because this is the one where I replaced the capacitor. What does that capacitor do in the circuit? It doesn't seem to have any meaningful impact in... That's kind of wild. I don't think I have the touchscreen plugged in, so I won't be able to navigate this menu. No. So that's curious. I don't know enough about like electrical engineering to know like why that screen even works. Like in a normal-ish fashion. Okay, well, can't quite say I understand the reason for that. You know what, before I get that plugged in, I want to see what happens if I change the brightness on that screen. I'm going to have to plug in my touchscreen. I should be able to change the brightness from the menu if I remember correctly. I know there's the shortcut of holding select and then using the volume buttons, but I don't have volume buttons plugged into this test console. That is wild that it's just fine. I was expecting a really interesting, like, very odd issue. Did I miss it? Probably brightness setting. No, let me turn that brightness back up before I turn this off. As far as I can tell, this screen is fine. Like, I don't know what the capacitor does, but it obviously has to do something. I'm perplexed. Let me get it back apart and then swap it with the yellowed backlight with the clear backlight capacitor on it. Let me desolder it before I undo this sandwich. Let me just verify this is the backlight that doesn't have the capacitor on it. Like, I'm pretty sure. Keep putting stuff places. Yeah, that spot is unpopulated. That's kind of wild. So, to reiterate, this is the backlight that was in the yellowed console that I swapped the capacitor with from the clear console. Gonna get this all nice and sandwiched back together. Ideally, what you should do is when you're taking this apart, if you desolder the backlight, what should happen is it stays sandwiched. Kind of like this. So you won't have to have these layers spring all over the place. Then you can remove the backlight and swap it. This mirrored backplate seems to stay in place. I think just friction, static electricity, or otherwise. And then it just clips back together. So now I got that back together. Solder back the points. Okay. So, again, I'm just going to reiterate. Yellowed backlight with a capacitor from a clear backlight screen. Yellow. So, it's something about the backlight itself. There's something on it. So I'm going to try and clean it. So that capacitor doesn't seem to have any like meaningful impact on the yellowness. I don't even know what that capacitor does. Could be voltage regulation. That could be what's failing on the screens that are flickering. If those capacitors are starting to go bad, that's why the screens flicker. That makes somewhat sense. It doesn't need it so much to power on and function, but more just to keep it from doing that. So let me desolder it again. And then what I'm going to do is just wipe it up and down really good with rubbing alcohol. I need to get a little more solder on these points too. So because it could like be a failing maybe one of the LEDs or the LEDs are getting weak. I don't know. I can't really test that. I don't think. So it's out. This is one that I'm suspecting to be yellow. I'm just basically just going to throw all this away. All these screens are faulty at some point. Just sort of I'm not seeing any residue on my Q-tip. Ooh, that could have been bad. Hopefully I didn't tear that. That would make this entire... That looks fine. I would try to repair it anyway. I didn't see anything on my Q-tip. Still nothing. Okay. Now I'll just try that. All the layers lined up. Set the backlight in. I did not get the layers lined up very well. I see. I don't know if there's like a little groove underneath this or in this plastic. Some of them you almost have to like bend into place. Okay. Let's get it back soldered together. Grab a little more solder to help. Okay, that's soldered together. Wonder if I should go grab some like vinegar even. At this point, it's just sort of moot. Still yellowed. I don't see any impact that my cleaning did. What I can do is change the light strip. Since I found out that that light strip can come off. So let me find, so this is the one that I took the capacitor off of that powered up and was white. This one, I think. Yeah, that one, so that one is clear. Even without the capacitor, it still works. Desolder. Had a quick phone call. There we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do was replace the light strip of this. And I think I got it desoldered right before that got called. No, I didn't. Okay. Took this apart upside down. So yeah, if you disassemble it like this, then you can individually remove just the backlight and keep all these sandwiched layers sandwiched. I didn't because I forgot about that part. Now I'm just trying to shuffle everything back in. Alright, so I don't know how easy this is to align, but here's the yellowed. It's pretty easy to just come off. Sort of this little strip of adhesive that sort of lines up. I'm going to take it off and try and just get the adhesive going from this one. So let me just get the orientation right so it's like this. Let me get some rubbing alcohol on it just to sort of help loosen it up. And it is not coming off with the adhesive. Okay, cool. This isn't really the most important for the sake of experimentation, but yeah, especially when it all bunches up like this. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even going to worry about it. I'll just see if I can get away with just sort of placing it in. And just sort of use the friction of the case. Should go like this. Okay. It's a lot more necessary than I expected. I don't even know how good this adhesive will be after manhandling it like this. If at all. But I'll just try and get it on. I just don't want it to skew my results. Having like inconsistent or bumpy adhesive. Actually going on okay, all things considered. did fold over right here. I just have to get that straight. Okay. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good. So now I should be able to just slip this on. Let me just verify the orientation. So this side is the plug side. I don't feel like it was upside down. Oh, I put the adhesive on the wrong side. Oh, that's annoying. Right? Wrong side? Yeah, because it needs to go on the underside. Well, went on better the second time. And should go something like this. Line up the holes a little better. There, I think it's not pretty. I just need to make sure it doesn't impact my results. Which I may have to surrender to the idea that it will. So here's kind of a side-by-side. Looks pretty good, all things considered. So I swapped the light bar without the capacitor. This is the one that showed up clear. This is on the yellowed backlight. Which I guess, I don't really know what this piece that the light bar is attached to is. Like a diffuser, maybe? I'm just kind of throwing out terms that I think apply. Okay, sandwich together. Let me get the connector back. I do notice there's like quite a bit more slack. But I'm not looking for a permanent fix. I'm just looking to prove a point. So if the screen is still yellowed, then whatever that layer that the backlight is connected to has something wrong with it. Yeah, which is still yellowed. So I don't know what is going on with this. It's this layer, this actual piece of plastic or whatever material this is. It sort of makes a noise when I rub my fingernail against it, so it's grooved. So something might be growing on it. If I dunked it in bleach, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's sort of the conclusion I got. So out of the 2 yellowed screens that I tried, it was the backlight that ended up being the problem. This piece, which can be swapped out, but you risk introducing foreign particles inside the screen housing, and kind of like what you saw, you also risk damaging the LCD itself by swapping it. Very interesting. I did a very poor job keeping track of all this, so it's pretty much all garbage. But if anything, to sort of satiate some academic curiosity, yeah, I really don't know how to sort of pigtail it, but that's what I was able to find out through just some trial and error. So why, again, the why and the how, I don't know. Like even just comparing the yellowed to a normal one, there's no meaningful visual difference that explains why. I'll take it out again. It's like I held it over a flashlight, I couldn't see anything. I just had no real rhyme or reason to... How does light actually project up? Like, can you tell me which one was the yellowed one? Because I can't tell. Not really. Holding it up to my overhead light, and especially on these corners that were the most yellow. Because even just to prove a point again, let me just swap in this one, this backlight. I don't remember I don't even know where this backlight even came from. Probably a fine console. Maybe what I should do is conclude this video with an actual repair. So this is just a random backlight from one of the screens. And look at that. It's white. So I don't know. That's really strange. But I do like the idea of concluding this video on a successful fix. So you get to see all the crap on the top of my mat, all the PS4 parts. Let me grab some gloves. Alright, and let me just get all this out of here. That might still be good. Let's shop around for one that's aggressively yellowed again. It shouldn't be too hard to find. I would say this one's not even yellowed. Not even a little bit. It's warm, but I wouldn't exactly call that yellowed. Not to the degree that warrants being in that box. That's mild. I only have like 3 more of these screens I can test before I can go on to bottom screens, which I assume the architecture of the bottom screen is the same diffusion layers. I don't necessarily want to test that theory. That one's not bad either. I'm just trying to get something that I can see. See through my camera lens, rather. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. So there, right there, this white screen has aggressively yellowed corners. This one's really bad. So let me set that aside. I'm going to grab a screen that looks to be in pretty good physical shape, but has a torn ribbon cable, which, yeah, right there, there's a pretty good tear. Functionally unfixable. So let me first start by desoldering the backlight. So, and that's this little extra ribbon cable here. I'm going to put my tweezers underneath the ribbon. And get a little closer. Put my tweezers underneath the little ribbon sandwich for the backlight. And then just touch my iron across both points. While I kind of pull my tweezers towards me. I might need to put a little solder on my iron, actually. Oh, come on. And there. Pops apart. Do the same on this one. Okay. Now I'm going to start on the torn one. I'm going to be a little more aggressive because I don't necessarily care too much. I can't do anything again about the LCD display, even though the LCD is fine. There's just nothing I can do there. What I'm going to do is just get it apart. I'm not going to undo the sandwich quite yet. meaning I'm just going to kind of go around the frame. Just kind of pop it up like that. Okay, so that one's ready to go. Now here's the one I want to keep, so I need to be a lot more careful. I just need to look for the points that are clipped, which is all up here, all up on this top bar. Clip, clip. Kind of co-opt it with another pry tool. I just have to get it started somewhere without putting too much force into it and breaking the LCD. I might be able to get a good start up on these top three. Oh, those might be inner clips, not outer clips. I did hear a pop. I hope that wasn't what I thought it would be. Maybe this corner down here is the best sort of point of entry. Yeah, I don't think this LCD made it. There are some pretty good pops. Okay. But I'm just going to proceed forward that it survived. Let me get my light on just to verify. I think I'm good, actually. So now, because usually when the LCD breaks, you can see it even when the display isn't on. I really don't like doing that. Should really have taken off these speakers too. I might be able to just get away with doing that. Okay. So I'm going to flip this over. Try and get it so the LCD isn't touching much. I'm going to grab the backlight as fast as I can. Without trying to disturb the other layers. My biggest problem is just introducing foreign material. Okay, do the same for this one, but I care, well, far less about the various components other than the backlight. Slide the backlight in. Okay, I did knock that first layer off a little bit. What happens is these layers are clinging to the backlight static electricity. Okay. Okay, clipped together quite nicely. So now it's going to be sort of a game of trying to get dust off the screen. No smudging, so that's pretty good. I'm going to just kind of try and get this one out of my way. Oh, I was trying to close it wrong. This is also a part I can do later. Very quickly slap this guy back on. Now, the clips for this are much taller, so I'm going to have to kind of help it on. Hopefully don't bend the frame too much. Okay, this one's back together, so let me kind of check to see how well my cleaning did. Just gonna rub a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it to get some of these smears off. So it's not perfect, there's quite a bit of particulate under there. That is something I can take care of later. The lens itself looks okay. Okay. Now that it's together, let me get the backlight re-soldered on. Just gonna put it in my Omni vise. Now, since this is a screen I'm attempting to actually fix, I'm gonna try and get it so it's lined up a little better. That's a little easier said than done. There's holes in this ribbon cable. I might be able to display it. And I'm guessing there are two tiny holes there. I could poke my, tweezers through them. So that might be how they were aligned originally. But it might not matter if I get them, perfectly sandwiched together, just as long as they're together. Okay. And these go together really easily. This top ribbon cable, that's part of the display and the speaker, it's perforated. So it's the solder pad and it has little holes in it. And then the underside is the actual backlight, so you just press them together, heat it up, and basically heats up those little functional equivalent. Well, they're not even functionally equivalent to VIAs. They're just little like hole points that probably just help transfer heat down to the bottom ribbon cable. So now the moment of truth. Does replace... I don't know the status of that backlight. I'm going to venture the guess that it was not yellowed. But does replacing the backlight fix yellowing? You remember how yellow this top display was. It was very bad. I could pick it up in the camera. That's how bad it was. Wow. Yeah. I think any of the particulate I see is between the lens. Yeah. So that... I would say that the backlight I picked wasn't completely clear, but it's definitely a lot better than it was. I would say even fixed, really. So that's really the conclusion I can come to. It is that backlight. None of the other layers impact the yellowness. It's purely that like backlight piece, not even the little light projectors. Just whatever that piece is. Let me grab it. Whatever this piece is just becomes a foul. Why it turns yellow, I don't know. If it's like UV damage, something growing on it, I don't have an answer. And does it really matter? I don't know. But I was able to fix this display because of it. So, yeah. I really don't have any closing thoughts other than that's very interesting. That does make repair feasible. Maybe a little outside of what most people can do, but considering that the only other option is trying to see if you can source replacements, I say it's not a bad trade-off. Now, I don't know exactly if I completely cleared all the foreign bodies outside of the inside of this display before I closed it up. I do see spots above, but I'm hoping that is just between the lens and the LCD itself. Because that I can do something with. If it's inside, then I'll just be fighting. I'm just going to go around it and look and just see that it did sandwich together. It did just clip there a little. I didn't get it completely, but... Yeah, I guess that's it. So, just to kind of beat a dead horse, it was the backlight, whatever that material is, turned yellow on the corners for some reason. Humidity, something growing on it, I have no clue. But at least that's a something.